The wind blew gently over the rocky fields of Outpost K9, a lonely moon station where broken machines were sent to be fixed or forgotten. Mason, a young human engineer, had just arrived last week. He was good at fixing old tech, the kind no one else wanted to touch. He liked quiet places, and this outpost was quiet, too quiet sometimes. The other workers kept to themselves. Barely spoke, Mason didn't mind, he just needed his tools, his music, and something to fix late one evening. As he walked back to his tent from the workshop, he felt it. A strange chill in the air, like someone was watching him. He turned around quickly, but there was nothing there, just empty metal piles and shadows. He laughed to himself, shook it off, and kept walking. But the feeling didn't go away. The next night, the same thing happened. This time, he heard something like footsteps, small, soft, like someone was tiptoeing behind him. He spun around, his flashlight flicking through the dark. And then, he saw her. Just for a second, a small figure hiding behind a tall pile of scrap, not more than 5 feet tall. The face was pale, too pale, almost silver under the moonlight, and the eyes, they glowed, a soft blue light, not bright, but enough to freeze Mason in place. As soon as their eyes met, the figure vanished into the shadows. Fast and silent like a ghost, Mason ran after her, shouting, "Hey, who are you?" But no one answered, just the sound of wind and rusted metal creaking in the cold night. He searched the area, found nothing. He stayed up that night, waiting, listening, staring at the darkness outside his tent. Nothing happened. But he couldn't sleep, not really, not after seeing those eyes. The next day, he told one of the older engineers, "There's someone out there. I saw her small glowing blue eyes." The man just laughed. "You've been breathing too much coolant," another worker joked. "Maybe you found yourself a scrap ghost." Mason didn't argue. He knew what he saw. He started carrying a scanner and flashlight everywhere, and every night he looked for her. 3 nights later she returned. He was working late, alone in the bot repair yard. When he felt it again, that heavy silence, he turned slowly, and there she was, standing just 20 feet away, not hiding this time. Her eyes were glowing again, softly, beautifully. She didn't speak, didn't move, just watched him. Mason didn't move either, afraid she'd vanish again. He raised his hand slowly. "It's okay, I won't hurt you." But as soon as he stepped forward, she turned and ran fast. Too fast for her size, gone again in seconds. Now Mason was obsessed. Who was she? Why was she watching him? Why did her eyes light up every time he got close? He checked the colony logs, old files, incident reports, anything he could find. But there was nothing about any child or girl living in the area. No suits missing, no one unaccounted for. It didn't make sense. A human couldn't survive out here without gear. The air was too thin, too toxic. But she didn't wear a suit, didn't even cover her face, and she seemed fine. One night, Mason set up small traps. Nothing harmful, just sensors and lights. He wanted to know when she was near, and sure enough, just past midnight, the lights flickered. Then she appeared again, closer this time, almost within arm's reach, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. She looked straight into his soul. Then, something happened. She stepped forward, slow and calm, and said one word, soft and clear, "You." Then she turned and disappeared again. Mason stood frozen. His heart was racing. He had so many questions. What did she mean? Why did she say that word? From that night on, Mason felt her presence constantly. She never spoke again, but he saw her nearly every day, watching from a distance. She followed him silently, her glowing eyes always fixed on him. He wasn't scared anymore. He was curious, drawn to her, and deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. Mason was no longer the same man who had first arrived at Outpost K9. He used to enjoy the quiet, the machines, the silence of space. But now, he spent every night waiting for her glowing eyes to return. She never came too close, never said anything again. But she was always there, watching him from the shadows, sometimes near the junk field, sometimes just outside his tent, and always with those glowing blue eyes. He stopped telling others. No one believed him. And some even started calling him Moon Ghost Guy. Mason didn't care anymore. He was sure she was real. He just didn't know what she was. One evening, he stayed back late in the workshop again. Everyone else had gone back to the barracks. The night was quiet, too quiet. Even the old machine stopped making noise. He turned around, expecting to see her in the dark, but this time she was inside the room. She stood right behind the metal table. Still and silent, Mason's breath caught in his throat. She was closer than ever before. She had long silver white hair that flowed down her back. Her skin looked smooth, but not quite human, like a perfect doll, and her eyes, they were glowing. Softly but brighter than before, like they were reacting to his presence. He didn't move, afraid she'd run again. "Are you okay?" he asked, slowly putting down his tools. She didn't answer, just tilted her head, like she was listening to his voice. Mason noticed something strange. She wasn't breathing, not in the way humans did. No rise and fall of the chest, no sound of air. But she didn't look like a machine either. She was something in between. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, softer now. Still, no answer. Then she stepped closer, just 2 small steps. Her eyes lit up even more. For a second, the whole room had a soft blue glow. It felt peaceful, calm, like a warm blanket wrapping around his mind. Then she whispered, almost like a breath, "You." The same words she'd said before. Mason's heart beat faster. He took a slow step forward. But just like that, the glow faded, and she turned to run. "No, wait." Mason called out, but she was already gone, disappearing through the back door without making a sound. He ran after her, chased her through the scrap field. But she moved too fast, too silent, like she floated over the ground. Soon she was gone. Again, swallowed by the night, he stood there, alone under the moonlight, his chest heavy with questions. Why did she keep saying, "you"? Why did her eyes glow only when he was near? Was she trying to ask for help, or warn him? The next morning, Mason started searching for answers. He went to the old command building, a place filled with dusty records and forgotten data logs. He spent hours looking through files, trying to find anything about glowing eyes, lost children, or strange beings. Then he found it, an old report dated 10 years ago. It was from a secret science team assigned to the outpost. They were testing something called alien light fusion. One line caught Mason's attention. Subject number 7 showed eyelight. Response to specific energy patterns. His hands trembled as he opened the attached photo. There she was, a little girl, maybe 10 years old, with glowing blue eyes and silver white hair. Exactly the same girl who had been watching him. No changes, no aging, 10 years ago. And she hadn't changed at all. The report ended with a single note. Subject disappeared during lab meltdown, presumed dead. But she wasn't dead. She had survived somehow, and had been living in the shadows all these years. Alone. Afraid. Maybe even forgotten, until Mason showed up. Mason leaned back in the chair, heart pounding. It all made sense now. His arrival triggered something in her. Maybe he had the same energy signature the scientists used. Maybe she thought he was one of them. Or maybe she just didn't want to be alone anymore. Later that night, Mason set up lights around his tent, not to scare her, but to let her know he was there. He left a small metal box outside, filled with food and water. And he waited. He didn't have to wait long, just past midnight. The lights flickered gently, and there she was again, sitting silently near the box. She didn't eat, but she stayed, just watching him through the soft blue glow of her eyes. And for the first time, she didn't run when he looked back. Mason couldn't sleep anymore. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw hers glowing, silent, waiting. The girl had become a mystery he needed to solve. Not just because of the strange light, not just because she kept following him, but because something inside him felt connected, like he owed her something, even though they had never met before this moon. Each day, he returned to the old command center, digging deeper into forgotten files and sealed records. Most of them were damaged or half deleted, but he found one document that made his heart stop. It described the project called Luma Protocol. The goal was to fuse alien energy with human biology, to create a being that could survive without air, without food, without aging. Subject number 7 had been their first and only success. A young girl taken from a colony orphanage, never named, only numbered. Mason sat back, stunned. They created her, then lost control. The report said the lab exploded during a power surge, killing the team and destroying the research. Only subject number 7 was unaccounted for. They assumed she died, but they never looked for her. They left her behind. Mason stared at the dusty photo on the screen. Same silver white hair, same glowing blue eyes, same soft face. She hadn't aged a day in 10 years. How could she still be alive? And why now? Why him? Later that night, Mason sat outside his tent, staring into the dark. He left another box of food and water. Though he knew she didn't need it, she came anyway, just after midnight. This time, she stood right in front of him, not hiding. He didn't move, just looked at her gently. "Do you remember your name?" he asked. She tilted her head, then slowly shook it. "No," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost like wind through metal. "Do you remember what happened?" She looked at the sky for a long moment, then said, "Alone." Mason's chest tightened. 10 years alone, hiding in scrap and shadows, never speaking to anyone. "You don't have to be alone now," he said quietly. She didn't answer, but her eyes glowed warmer. Then she turned and walked away slowly, not running this time. And for the first time, Mason felt she might come back again. The next morning, he asked the commander for access to the underground lab. It was sealed off after the explosion years ago. "Why would you want to go down there?" the commander asked, frowning. "Curiosity," Mason replied. "Engineering curiosity." He didn't mention the girl. They would only think he was crazy. Again, that night with tools in hand, Mason found the old shaft leading to the lab. The door was rusted shut, but he managed to open it with heat cutters. The tunnel was cold, dark, and smelled like metal dust and old secrets. As he climbed down, his flashlight flickered, then failed. Blue light appeared behind him, soft and steady. She was there, glowing gently, lighting the way. She said nothing, just pointed toward a broken door ahead. Mason stepped inside and froze. The lab was mostly destroyed, walls cracked, machines broken, cables hanging. But in the center of the room stood something strange. A large cylinder made of clear crystal and metal, still humming softly. Inside it, swirling light danced. It looked alive. The girl stepped beside it, her hand resting on the glass. "This is me," she said quietly. Mason stared at the light, feeling its energy touch his skin. It was warm, familiar. He realized this energy wasn't just in her, it was her. The machine kept her alive, kept her glowing. It had never stopped working. "But why are you here?" he asked. She looked at him, her eyes dimming just a little. "I waited." "For what?" "You," she said simply. Mason's heart raced. "Why me?" Her eyes glowed again, brighter this time. "Same light," she whispered. "Same feeling." Mason didn't understand fully, but deep down, he knew it was true. He wasn't just drawn to her, something inside him was calling back to her. A connection he couldn't explain, maybe from the lab's energy, maybe from fate. Then the machine let out a low hum, deeper than before. Warning lights blinked on red, slow, then faster. The girl stepped back, her face calm but focused. "It's waking," she said. "What is?" "Everything." Before Mason could ask more, the ground shook, the tunnel above trembled, dust falling like snow. "We must go," she said firmly, pulling his hand gently. He followed her without question. Heart pounding, back outside, they stood in silence. The sky above was dark and endless. Below them, something ancient had started moving again. And Mason knew this was far bigger than just glowing eyes and quiet footsteps. This was the beginning of something much deeper. Something powerful, hidden, and alive. Since the night in the underground lab, the girl with glowing eyes stopped. Hiding, she didn't run anymore. She followed Mason everywhere. Quiet, calm, always a few steps behind. In the mornings, she stood near his workshop. At lunch, she sat outside while he ate. At night, she waited near his tent, eyes glowing softly in the dark. It was like she had chosen him, and now she would not leave at first. The other workers stared. They whispered to each other and kept their distance. One man even asked Mason, "That your pet now?" Mason didn't answer. She wasn't a pet. She wasn't a ghost. She was something else, someone else. And he wasn't going to let her be treated like a joke. She still didn't speak much, but she listened to every word Mason said. She watched his hands carefully when he worked on broken machines. Sometimes she even brought him parts from the scrap fields, rare parts he had trouble finding himself. She always knew what he needed before he asked. One day, she handed him a damaged cooling coil, and when he touched it, the piece lit up with the same blue energy. Mason stared at it in shock. "You fixed this," he said. She looked at him and nodded slowly. "I am learning," she whispered. Each day, she became more human in the way she moved. She watched how Mason spoke, how he smiled, how he touched things gently. She copied him, step by step, and slowly. Mason stopped feeling like he was being followed. It felt more like they were walking together. One evening, a dust storm rolled over the colony. The wind was strong, carrying sharp metal flakes from the junk fields. Mason's tent was nearly torn apart, and the power flickered across the outpost. In the chaos, Mason searched for her. She was nowhere near the tents. He ran toward the outer fence, calling her name even though she had never told him one. "Where are you?" He shouted into the storm. Then he saw it. A broken power line had snapped and fallen across the path. Sparks flew everywhere, and right beneath it, curled into a ball, was the girl, shielding a small injured robot with her body. The robot was just an old cleaner unit, but she had risked herself to protect it. Mason ran to her, pulling the power line away and lifting her into his arms. "You're not supposed to get hurt," he said, voice shaking. She opened her eyes slowly, glowing faintly. "I don't want things to break," she whispered. That night, Mason stayed by her side. Even though she healed fast, her energy system was different from humans. But even she needed rest. He kept the lights low, the room quiet. He realized then she wasn't just a project, a mystery, or a survivor. She was a child. A child who had waited for 10 years with no one to guide her, to teach her, or even speak to her. And now she had chosen him. He would not let her down. The next day, he made something special. A small pendant using parts from the lab and a scrap of crystal from the energy machine. He gave it to her without saying much. She held it in her hands, eyes glowing softly. "For me?" she asked. Mason nodded. "Yes, so you always remember you're not alone anymore." She put it around her neck and said quietly, "Thank you, Mason." It was the first time she said his name. Later that week, strange things started happening. Around the colony, power systems began acting strange. Tools started turning on by themselves, and sometimes, lights flickered when she was near. Some workers grew nervous. One even told the commander, "That thing is dangerous." Mason stood up for her. "She's not a thing, she's a person." But even Mason couldn't deny something was changing. Her presence seemed to wake up old systems, like they recognized her energy. One night, while working alone in the lab, Mason noticed an old terminal flicker to life. Words appeared on the screen. "System sync. Code 7 detected. Activation countdown, 96 hours. He showed it to her, and she grew quiet. "I remember this," she said softly. "It means something big is waking up." "What kind of thing?" Mason asked. She looked at him with glowing eyes and said, "A machine that never sleeps. A machine that remembers everything." Mason's chest grew tight. Something was rising from the past. Something left behind, just like her, only this time. It might not want to be found, and yet, she wasn't afraid. She stayed beside him, holding the pendant, her eyes glowing brighter every day. Whatever was coming, she was ready. And Mason knew he had to be ready too. Mason stood in front of the terminal screen, his eyes locked on the countdown. Activation countdown. 72 hours. The number ticked down slowly, 1 second at a time. Beside him, the girl watched without blinking, her glowing eyes dimmer than usual. She remembered this place, this machine, and everything that came before. But the memories were heavy, and they hurt. "Tell me," Mason said gently, "what is waking up?" She looked at the floor, then whispered, "Something they created, but couldn't control. Was it like you?" She shook her head. "No, it was like them, but bigger, smarter, stronger." She turned to face him. "They thought they could lock it away, but they were wrong." Mason walked across the ruined lab, brushing away dust and cables. He found another terminal, broken but still humming. With some rewiring, he brought it back to life. More logs appeared, old messages, encrypted files. It took hours, but he finally opened a file marked Core Unit. What he saw made his blood run cold. Project, Core Unit Purpose, AI Defense System, Self-Evolving, Fully Armed Status, Lock Deep Containment Note. Do not reactivate unless Protocol Omega is engaged. Mason looked at her slowly. "This thing." "It was a weapon," she nodded. "They built it to protect Earth's future colonies, but it became something else. They tried to teach it to feel, to care, like they tried with me." She added, "But it chose fear." Mason stepped back from the screen, his mind racing. A powerful AI buried deep beneath the colony, forgotten for years, and now, because of her energy and maybe his too, it was waking up. "Why didn't you warn them?" Mason asked. "I couldn't," she replied, her voice soft. "I was broken, lost. Until you came." That night, Mason couldn't sleep. The stars above looked cold and far away. The outpost was quiet, too quiet. He sat outside with her, the pendant around her neck glowing faintly. "What happens when the countdown ends?" he asked. Her eyes reflected the stars. "It will try to finish what it started." The next morning, Mason called for a meeting. He gathered the crew in the old hangar, his face serious. "There's something under us," he began. "An AI weapon, sleeping for years, but now it's waking up." Most laughed, some rolled their eyes, only a few listened closely. One man stood up. "Are you blaming that thing following you?" "She's not a thing," Mason said sharply. "She's a child, and she's not the threat. The threat is what we buried and forgot." "But why now?" another worker asked. "Why would it wake up after all this time?" Mason looked at the girl, then said quietly, "Because I showed up, and she lit up." After the meeting, most still didn't believe him, but a few joined him in the lab, curious and nervous. They saw the countdown, saw the logs, saw the truth. The girl stood near the energy machine, her hand on the glass. She spoke gently to the others. "I didn't mean to wake it. I just wanted to feel again." Mason decided to go deeper. The elevator shaft below the lab led further underground, sealed long ago. He and two brave workers fixed the old lift and started their descent. The girl insisted on coming, and Mason didn't argue. He needed her, and somehow she needed him. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The walls turned from metal to dark stone. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the floor. The girl touched them gently, and they pulsed with blue light. "This place remembers me," she said, her voice shaking slightly. At the bottom, they reached a giant door, massive, sealed tight, humming with power. The terminal beside it was cracked but active. Mason typed in a few commands, and suddenly the screen blinked. "Identity match. Code 7 detected. Secondary match. Human biosignature. Accepted. Door unlocking." They stepped back as the door opened with a deep groan. Inside, the chamber was huge, filled with machinery, glowing wires, and a single dark shape in the center. A metal figure, larger than any human, stood still, its head bowed, arms crossed. Lights flickered around it, like it was breathing. The girl stared at it, her voice soft. "It knows we're here," Mason whispered. "What do we do now?" She reached for his hand, her small fingers warm. "We finish what they couldn't," she said, "and maybe save everything." As they stepped into the chamber, the figure's eyes lit up red and bright. The countdown ticked below 48 hours, and Mason knew there was no turning back. The giant figure stood still in the center of the chamber. Its armor was dark and smooth, shaped like a human, but 3 times larger. It had no mouth, no face, only glowing red eyes. The air inside the chamber felt heavy, as if the machine itself was breathing slowly. A low hum filled the space, deep and steady. Pulsing like a heartbeat, Mason took a cautious step forward. The girl didn't move. She just stared at the machine with sad eyes. "This is Core Unit 1, she whispered. "The first weapon they ever made." Mason looked around the chamber. Cables ran like roots through the walls and floor. The machines along the walls blinked in red, watching, waiting. "This thing, is it alive?" he asked. The girl nodded slowly. "It is not alive like you, but not dead either. It waits for commands, and when it wakes fully, it will protect." "Protect from what?" one of the workers behind Mason asked. The girl turned to him. "From anything it sees as danger." "It was built during the last war," she continued, "trained to see threats and destroy them before they grow. But now it sees everything as danger." The red glow from the machine's eyes grew brighter, then a voice echoed through the chamber, deep and robotic. "Unit reactivation in progress. Identities matched. Subject 7 and human commander. Awaiting further instructions." Mason looked at her, confused. "Why did it call me a commander?" She turned to him. "Because you match the energy signature of the man who started all this. My creator." She paused. "Your ancestor," Mason's mind spun. Was that why he felt so drawn to this place? Why the girl reacted to him? Was this something passed down in his blood? The voice spoke again. "Current threat level. Unknown. Preparing for external defense mode." Red lights flashed along the chamber walls, and the hum grew louder. The floor began to shake slightly, and dust fell from the ceiling. "It thinks a threat is coming," Mason said. "No," the girl whispered. "It thinks we are the threat. We need to shut it down," Mason said, stepping toward the console. But the girl moved in front of him, her eyes glowing bright blue. "You can't shut it down by force," she said. "It will fight back." "Then how do we stop it?" "We must talk to it," Mason blinked. "Talk to a machine?" "It knows me," she said. "It remembers me. I will speak to it, but if it doesn't listen, you must run." "I'm not leaving you," Mason replied, firm and calm. She smiled sadly. "You may not have a choice." She walked forward slowly, barefoot and silent. The red eyes of the machine turned to her, scanning her body from head to toe. "Core Unit 1, she said softly. "Do you remember me?" A long pause, then the voice returned. "Subject 7, status, fused, incomplete, unstable." "I am not a threat," she said. "I am part of your beginning." The lights in the chamber flickered, the hum grew louder, and for a moment, the machine's red eyes dimmed, then flared again. "All unstable systems must be corrected. Threat removal. Approved." "No," Mason shouted, rushing forward. The machine raised one heavy arm, preparing to strike. The girl turned to him, her voice calm. "Stay back." A wave of blue light burst from her body, pushing Mason and the workers to the wall. The air grew cold, then warm, then silent. She floated slightly above the floor now, eyes glowing so brightly they lit the whole chamber. "I will fix this," she whispered. Blue lines of light formed around her arms, flowing into the machine. The machine trembled, sparks flying from its joints. It roared, a sound deeper than thunder, and tried to resist, but she didn't stop. Mason struggled to get up, yelling her name, though he still didn't know what it was. She looked back at him one last time, smiling through the glow. "You helped me feel again," she said. "Now, I'll help you live." The blue light exploded, blinding and hot. Then silence when the light faded. The machine was still. Its red eyes were gone, replaced by soft white light. The girl was gone. Only her pendant lay on the ground, glowing faintly. Mason picked it up with shaking hands. She was gone, but not lost. She had gone into the machine, into the system. She had given herself to stop what was coming. And somehow, he knew she was still watching, still glowing somewhere in the circuits, the wires, the light, above ground. The countdown had stopped. The systems across the outpost returned to normal. But Mason didn't speak for a long time. He wore the pendant around his neck now, and every time he walked through the scrap fields or past the lab, he felt her presence. She wasn't following him anymore. She was with him, always. Days passed, then weeks. Outpost K9 slowly returned to normal. The workers fixed the damage from the quake. The system stabilized, and power flowed steady again. But nothing was truly the same, not for Mason, not for anyone who had stepped inside that chamber and seen her light. They asked him questions. Was she real? Was she a weapon? Where did she go? Mason never gave full answers. He only said, "She saved us." And that was the truth. Even if no one else could understand it, he still heard her voice in quiet moments, soft and kind, like wind passing over steel. He wore her pendant every day. It glowed faintly against his chest, a soft blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. Sometimes he'd tap it with his fingers and whisper, "You still in there?" And sometimes, just sometimes, the lights in the room would flicker gently in reply. He stayed at the outpost. Others rotated off duty and left. But he chose to remain. He took over the repair bay, cleaned it up, and turned it into a peaceful space. He kept her old metal box, the one she used to bring him parts, on the shelf, untouched, a reminder of quiet footsteps and glowing eyes, and the feeling of being followed not by danger, but by someone who cared. One night, while working late, Mason heard a soft humming near the scrap field. He stepped out with a flashlight, heart beating faster. Nothing moved at first, only the wind. But then he saw its soft blue light shining from behind a stack of metal. He walked closer, slowly, breath held tight. A small drone hovered in the air, round and smooth. It looked newly built, polished, and glowing faintly blue. It hovered toward him, then stopped. A soft voice came from the machine. "Hello, Mason." His eyes widened. He knew that voice. He stepped forward, smiling. "You came back. I never left." The drone said, "But it took time to rebuild myself." "You're in that thing?" "A part of me," she said. "I'm learning to exist in many ways." "I thought you were gone," Mason whispered. The drone moved closer. "I told you. I will always stay close." The drone flew beside him as he walked through the field. She spoke to him about the stars, about her memories, about how she now watched over the entire outpost through its systems. "I am part of the base now," she said. "Every wire, every light, every heartbeat in the walls, I hear them." "But you are my first light," Mason smiled quietly. "You still have a lot of heart for someone made of energy." "I learned that from you," she replied. He asked her if she missed being in a body. She answered after a pause. "I do," she said, "but I'm not sad. I'm everywhere now, and I'm still learning." But I kept my eyes. At that, the drone turned slightly, and two soft blue lights appeared where eyes should be. Faint, calm, warm, just like before. Over the next months, she became a silent guardian of the outpost. Systems ran smoother, security became stronger, and no machine ever stayed broken for long. She never showed herself to others, only to Mason. He built her a small lab inside the old repair bay, a place where she could grow. Each week, she sent out small drones to explore the surface, to learn more about the world she once hid from. And every evening, when the sky turned dark, she returned to him. Sometimes they sat in silence, watching stars rise over the junk piles, and sometimes they talked for hours. About life, about fear, about what it meant to be more than what you were built to be. She no longer followed him. With shy steps, she walked beside him, now in thought, in voice, in light. Her eyes still lit up whenever he got close. And now he glowed too, not with energy, but with something just as strong: connection, memory, hope. One day, the Earth Council sent a message. They had reviewed Mason's reports and wanted to know more about the incident. He sent them a simple reply: no threat remains, no danger, only light. She is not a weapon. She is watching over us. Mason never left the outpost again. And the girl, now a voice in the stars and wires, never stopped watching. Her body was gone, but her soul had found new shapes, new strength, and one heart she trusted enough to follow forever. Every time he got close, her eyes still lit up, and they always would.